My name's Sarah. I will be our facilitator today. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I work with system-involved parents and children. I'm excited to hear from all of you and look forward to a great conversation. I am joined by Robert Rogers from John Gioia's office, and he is going to be our chat facilitator for the evening. Our technology facilitator is Maureen Toms, and she'll be helping us with muting, unmuting, and other technological issues tonight. If you're having any problems during the program, please reach out to one of us and we can help you out. All right, so we're gonna get right into it. Do we have federal yet? We gotten him? Not yet, okay.
You just tried to call, let me see.
Perfect, I got him. All right. Before I get into the meat and potatoes, I wanted to make sure we have all of our guests.
Good.
Hi, Supervisor Glover. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be getting right into it. So following the protests for Black Lives in Pinole, we felt it was essential to continue this conversation and make sure our local officials hear from the community of Pinole. I want to remind everyone that this is just the beginning of a conversation and we hope to continue it beyond tonight. A quick reminder to mute yourself as you're coming in. We're going to kick off the conversation with a poll. It should be appearing as a pop-up. There we go. And while you guys are thinking on that question, I'm going to go over the general format for our discussion tonight and some ground rules. This conversation is structured as a listening session for public officials to hear your thoughts on public safety, policing, and racial justice issues. We'll start by giving our panelists 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to pose general questions to the community. If you'd like to speak on a question that I've posed, raise your hand through the Zoom icon, and I'll call on you each one by one. Each person's going to be given 2 minutes to speak on the question. When your time is up, you'll hear a timer go off, and I'll let you finish your thought. When I see no more hands, I will move on to the next question and again call on hands raised. We will go through between 5 and 8 questions depending on our time. At the end of the conversation, I'm going to give our panelists 3 minutes for closing remarks and remind you about some upcoming dates. If you want to respond to something one of your neighbors is saying, please do so by entering a reaction, one of the thumbs up or clapping, or respond in the chat. These can be hard conversations, and we want it to be not only a safe space for people to express their thoughts, but also a brave space. To do that, we're going to have some general ground rules for tonight. These are also going to be posted in the chat for you to refer back to. First and foremost, please respect others and their experiences. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're the identified speaker. Because our event isn't structured as a debate, we will be asking that if you feel strongly about something that someone is saying or it jogged an idea that you want to bring, I want you to bring that to the chat. Step up, step back. If you notice that you're speaking a lot, take a step back. And if you haven't heard your voice or made your voice heard, we really encourage you to step up and raise your hand. Keep an open mind to different experiences and different ideas from your own. And tonight, there are no bad ideas. Without further ado, I'm going to let our elected officials introduce themselves. If you can please say your name, your pronouns, the office you hold, and what you hope to gain from tonight's conversation. We're going to start with Norma Martinez-Rubin. And make sure you're unmuted. Whoa. Try one more time. There we go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Norma Martinez-Rubin, and you may call me Norma. I am Mayor Pro Tem in the city of Pinole, and I have the privilege of joining you. Thank you, Sarah, for the invitation to do so. What I expect to gain from participating here is to hear varied perspectives on your experience related to safety in Pinole. As one of your elected officials, I think there is an expectation that among your council members, among your leaders, we will try to respond to what community believes is needed with regard to services that are within the responsibility of our city jurisdiction. But related to that, and I think more importantly, it's an opportunity for me to hear the kinds of experiences that you've had in a town which I adopted a bit over 25 years ago. I grew up in Los Angeles, so I come from a big city. And coming into Pinole, I found it to be quite a different experience and very pleasant. So my experience has been generally a sense of safety in this small suburban town. And I wish that for everyone. So if I should hear something different, I have the responsibility to hear that and combine it with other people's experiences and try to make sense of that. And further, try to draw attention to that with the expectation that not only having heard people's experiences, but if there should be any shifts in the way our city operates, that be given some attention as well. So I welcome hearing what you have to say. I look forward to learning more about this. I appreciate that this is not the only session of this type that will be had, because I hope that as we go deep into these conversations, there will be ample opportunity for many people to provide their experiences. And thus we will hear what the Pinole citizens' experience about safety is about. Thank you.
I need to unmute myself. Thank you so much. And why don't we go on to Supervisor John Gioia.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm John Gioia, and I've had the honor of representing West Contra Costa County, including part of Pinole, on the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors for a little over 20 years. And I grew up in Richmond, and I'm looking forward to really hearing from all of you and having a chance to share, to get your input on some of the work that we're doing in Contra Costa County on racial equity issues. And Supervisor Glover and I are going to want to hear from you about a major public process that will be starting sometime soon on a discussion about race and racial equity in Contra Costa County. The county, unlike the city, is really more involved with other systems. While there's policing that goes on through the sheriff's department, really at the county, you have the criminal justice departments like sheriff, district attorney, probation, public defender. You have health and social services, and all of those, the policies of all of those departments impact whether our county is indeed achieving goals of racial equity. We're going to talk a little bit about and want to hear from you about our proposal to create an Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice at the county, and a public process that would occur countywide to give input into how that office is structured and its priorities. So this is really helpful to hear from you, and looking forward to hearing from you and having a discussion.
Great, thank you so much. We're looking at the results of our poll.
Oh, by the way, my pronouns he, him, his.
Thank you so much for saying that. All right, we'll bounce over to District Attorney Diana Becton. Oh, can you unmute yourself?
So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for our organizers and bringing us all together today for this important opportunity, really to listen to the people that we serve. I was scrolling through the names of all of the participants. Many of you have met personally, but for those who have not met, I serve as your district attorney for Contra Costa County for the last 3 years. I was originally appointed by the Board of Supervisors in 2017, and then elected by the people in 2018. And I say that with a smile, because I always want to recognize that I work for the people. Prior to serving as your district attorney, of course, I was a judge. I served in the Contra Costa County Superior Court for 22 years. including being elected as your presiding judge, presiding over the entire court and a $54 million budget. So I serve, we in the District Attorney's Office serve, we have a staff of about a little over 200. We serve the entire county, all 1.15 million residents, and work with 25 law enforcement agencies in 19 different cities. But every city in our county is one that we hold important. When I first took office in 2017, one of the things that I pledged to do is to always listen to our community. You know, sometimes we're in these jobs and we have a tendency to talk among ourselves, make policies and all kinds of things that affect you, the people. And I want to make sure that I'm always getting feedback from the people that we serve, what's working for you, what's not, and what you want to see done differently, so that helps us inform what policies we put in place and how we operate going forward. Community safety is always first, but of course your voices are right up there and so important. So I'm very glad to join this forum tonight. Great to have the opportunity to listen to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to pass on to Supervisor Federal Glover. Do we have you?
I would mute it. Anyway, thank you all so much, and to those who've been responsible for setting this very important meeting up tonight. I want to thank you. I've been on the Board of Supervisors. I am in year 20, and it's been a great pleasure. We did redistricting 10 years ago, and I began to serve the western part of my district, which consists of Crockett, Rodale, Hercules, Pinole, and a portion of Pinole, which I share with my colleague, Supervisor Gioia. And I'm looking forward to being able to listen tonight, because a lot of times we have in the past built policy around what we think the issues are. And so it's very important that we are listening to the people tonight. And also, as John shared, is that we're looking to share a little bit of the process in going forward to make sure that the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, as it is built, that we're building on some of the principles that you all are very concerned about. So I want to thanks again for the opportunity to be here, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue that's going to take place. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we'll move on to Councilmember Anthony Tave.
Hello, everyone. I want to first say thank you to everybody, all of our electeds for attending this meeting. I've been involved with, I got my son here. I've been involved when Sarah approached me to have these discussions centered around safety. I mean, we've talked about fire, but we really didn't have a larger conversation about policing. And with everything going on in the world, it was very important for me to make sure that as an elected that we're hearing our community. Pinole is generally thought of as a very safe town, but there's a difference between all of the metrics that we get as electeds when we see that a town is safe, and then hearing from the community, and more importantly, do people feel safe in Pinole? There's a difference between someone being safe and feeling safe, and how we communicate that. Just with the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests that happened in Pinole, there was definitely a sense of something needs to be done. And we've been circling a lot of concepts within our conversations about how does the mental health role play into policing. The Miles Hall incident came up, and that was another incident to me that you know, we didn't talk about the 20, 30 calls that happened prior to Miles Hall losing his life, and where the mental health plays into that role. But most importantly, as it relates to Pinole, is we want to know how you're feeling. What do you see? What are the issues that you want to bring forward? And with this body here, I think it's very well represented to have a very good discussion and to continue it and let this thing develop and turn into something that makes us better than when we started. So I want to thank everybody for being here.
Great. Thank you so much for those introductions. And we're gonna start with our first question, but first, I'm gonna be sharing the poll results, which I think may have popped up already. There they are. And please feel free to comment on those results in the chat. Was it surprising? Was it what you expected? You know, there are differences between police in general versus police in Pinole that I see. What do you think those are due to? So we're gonna start, again, I'm gonna give the community members 2 minutes to respond to the questions. When I call on you, please share your name, your pronouns, and how you're connected to Pinole. For example, if you go to school in Pinole, live here, or just visit often. If you do just enjoy visiting Pinole, which why wouldn't you? Let us know where you visit from. At the end of your 2 minutes, I'll give you a warning by lifting this orange folder when you have 10 seconds left. If you're not able to finish what you want to say, I really encourage you to bring it to the chat. Finish your comments there. So our first question that we're going to pose is, what does safety in Pinole mean to you? And what helps you feel safe in Pinole? You're going to be raising your hand using that Zoom icon at the bottom of your screen. Has everyone found it? All right. So our first person is going to be Rafael Menace. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. So my name is Rafael Menace. My pronouns are he, him, and I live and work, for that matter, in Pinole. And I'd say what's important to me, what I'm feeling about whether or not I feel safe, is part of it is the built structure of the community. You know, are there gaping holes in the roads? Are there, you know, areas that are dark at night? Part of it is security. Like, do I feel threatened if I'm going to a particular area of the city, which I don't in Pinole, and I'm grateful, but I've been in cities where it didn't necessarily feel safe for me to go to some areas. So that's definitely a factor in my personal consideration of safety. The quality of the police force. Can I trust the police? Do I think they have the best interests of the community in mind? Do I think that they're being compelled to pursue other goals than just public safety? And to be clear, I think that I do trust the Pinole police, and I think that their primary goals are public safety. It's why I've opposed efforts in the past to shift the city's revenue streams more towards fines and fees, because I worried that would change the police from more of a public safety role into revenue generating roles, which would inevitably have a negative impact on public safety. And part of it too is not just police, but also fire. If I'm worried that, you know, there's buildings breaking down or whatnot, then that would also make you feel unsafe. And I see I'm out of time, so I'll conclude my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael. And I got corrected. The raise hand is under participants. So if you go under participants, you should be able to raise your hand when you hit I don't see any other hands raised. There we go. All right, so we have Christine Stokes. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Christine Stokes. I go by she, her. Sorry, I have a dog. So I think whenever we talk about safety, one of the things that I like to talk about is the anxiety that can sometimes be brought on by having a police officer present. And that in itself can actually kind of stimulate a situation that might not have been a situation to begin with actions and reactions to, sorry, the feeling and emotion that comes with having a police officer present. It's like the idea of somebody wanting to run away from something that they don't necessarily need to. And whenever I speak of that to Pinole, I haven't had a whole lot of situations in Pinole, but I have had a lot of situations in other areas and other cities where I feel as though they've done a better job of creating community as far as know your rights campaigns and reaching out to the public and being better involved with the public so that anxiety isn't as high. And that's kind of something that I just wanted to speak to. That's all.
Great, thank you. I'm going to restate the question again. What does safety in Pinole mean to you, and what helps you feel safe in Pinole? Does anyone else want to speak on that question? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to the next question. Oh, there was one that came up. There we go. Susan Dunlap.
Yes, I was just going to add that for myself personally, I've lived in Pinole about 30 years, but I have had very few interactions with the police, and I feel safe, and the few interactions I've had have been positive, even though they were under not great circumstances. Catching somebody trying to break into my sliding glass door one time, and somebody who had sort of, I think was on some drugs and decided that my backyard looked like a good place to hang out. And both times the police were very quick to reply and took care of it very quickly. So I have very positive feelings about Pinole police, and I also have always felt safe here. But if those two things hadn't happened, I don't know that I would have felt very connected to police in terms of a community policing model. So, but I just wanted to share that. I think often it is our personal experiences that guide us in our opinions of police, as in anything else in life.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. And now we have Jamila Smith.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamila Smith Folds. I live in the sister city of Hercules. I often shop in Pinole every day because I have 3 children. I think the idea of safety is conditional. Do I feel safe is based on my condition. I mean, would I feel safe if I was 16 and 6'3" African-American walking in Pinole with a hat and a hoodie? Probably not. Do I feel safe as a 43-year-old mom of 3 girls going into Trader Joe's? Relatively, yes, and during the day. But I think safety is conditional, and I think that's one of the sad things about when we talk about safety and policing. It shouldn't be conditional. Everyone should have a feeling of safety and what it feels like to not have that part of your framing. So that's what I believe and want to speak on about safety. We need to move from being conditional.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this first question? If not, I'm going to move on to the next one. Great. Oh, Devin Murphy, go ahead.
Hey everybody, my name is Devin Murphy, and I use he, him, his pronouns. I have lived in Pinole, well, my family has lived here since the 90s, and I've lived here for about 5 years. And I think when I think about safety, aside from just physical structures, do I have a house over my head, home, shelter, and protection in that way? I think about people and the people around me, and specifically tolerance versus embracing, or like not even accepting, but really asking and inquiring questions in a positive way. I think oftentimes there's for me, when I feel most unsafe, it's when I feel like people around me don't understand me. I feel like when I feel unsafe, it's when people around me are looking at me, but not really understanding who I am or where I come from. Sometimes that includes police. Sometimes that includes someone who's not police. And so I think about safety as all people around me really embracing mostly my differences and how I'm different from them, because oftentimes people around me, when I am unsafe or safe, are embracing the similarities. It's the differences that I get most worried about when I feel unsafe. And so thinking about safety and policing, I haven't necessarily had personal experiences, that have been negative with police. But I would be remiss to say that if there was not a difference between myself and someone, I'm not a police officer, I have never been, and a police officer in Pinole, I think there is, there's a sense of a lack of understanding there that can come more, right, with learning each other, and that can be more safe. But overall with policing, I think there has been a set of experiences that have been quite different between my background and where I come from. And
All right, Devin, I don't want to cut you off, but we're gonna
perfect.
hit
No
your
worries.
2 minutes.
Thank
You want to keep talking, go over to the chat.
Thank you, no worries.
All right. Anyone else want to speak on this first question? All right. The next question is, what have you seen the police in Pinole do well? And we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'd love for people to expand and for us to hear some new voices as well. You have anyone who wants to speak on this question?
I do.
Okay, Yvette, go for it.
Okay. This is such an invaluable opportunity for us to have this conversation. I'm really appreciate that you've managed to organize this, and I think we're going to need this to happen on more than once, obviously. But I'll tell you, I'm originally from New York City, and I was raised in the South Bronx in a very tough neighborhood, and I was a victim of crime. When I came to Pinole, I found it to be sort of a Western movie, and I had no negative experiences with the Pinole police force. In fact, I did some ride-alongs with the police. I support the police in their effort. I think it's one of the toughest jobs anybody can have. But I think we can always improve on things. And I think the perception is based on your own individual life and your experiences, and how you're treated by the police also is dependent upon the color of your skin. So if you have a brown body or a black body, and I have a brown body, but I fit in overall without exception. I have never experienced any kind of prejudice here in Pinole, but I think the experience is based upon that. And I think when we talk about policing and reimagining the police, I think you have to take the perspective of all those different individuals and their own personal experiences and how they perceive that. My experiences with the Pinole Police Department have been very good, and I am especially supportive of this current police chief, Neil Gang, because he actually has made that effort that one of the speakers was talking about, of trying to communicate with the community, of trying to engage in the community, and trying to make the ability for people in the community who may not have the best experiences in the past to be able to see the police and vice versa as human beings. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Yvette. And next we have Maureen Toms. If you're unable to raise your hand, please feel free to private message me as well. I know that sometimes
Yeah,
these
even
pieces
though
are
I'm
tricky.
administering the Zoom, I haven't found the raise hand. So thanks, Sarah. What I really like about the police is their community outreach. I also, my volunteer job is I'm a Special Olympics coach for a team in West Contra Costa County, and law enforcement is an excellent partner with our group. And so they do fundraisers that help connect our athletes to the community. And then when back in the day when we used to have competitions live, there's a whole field of law enforcement, and Pinole is very well represented there. The other thing that they've done is they've gone out of their way to get Milo, the therapy dog, which is really helpful for community members and our athletes, who a lot of times we have young adults with autism and Down syndrome and other developmental disabilities, and just having the police being able to communicate with them, even with the police dog, has been really beneficial. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on positive experiences with the police or things that have gone well? I'm seeing some people kind of comment in the chat. We will move on to our next question. What have you seen that concerns you about policing in Pinole? And I think I want to also expand this, kind of what worries would you have about policing in Pinole? We don't have any. We can move on to our next question. Okay, so Christine Stokes, if you want to unmute yourself.
So I guess one of the concerns I potentially have is it's very easy for an incident to happen in a community, and you have so many names that are out there like Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so forth, that it's not hard for those things to happen in any situation. So what are we doing as far as the policing in Pinole to really make sure that when these instances do happen, what are our goals and what are we doing as far as communication with the public about making sure that we're as transparent as possible? And I don't know that I've necessarily seen anything that would kind of be addressed in that situation if something like that were to happen in Pinole.
Thank you. All right, Kristen Persley, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, I've had generally very positive interactions with the chief in my library work. He's come in and did some great presentations to the students. But I do have to say, I think the elephant in the room here, or the elephant in this chat, and the thing that does concern me is, why isn't he here? And that's just almost like a paradigm of us versus them, you know, of the police force and what they represent versus community activism or just community in general. You would think that he would want to be in this meeting, and I would just leave it at that. That's what concerns me, because that's what we don't want to see, is this, you know, divide, which we see all over the country now between local community organizations and Black Lives Matter and whatever, and the police force that seems to be just widening and widening. And hopefully that won't happen in Pinole, but this is not the most positive way of expressing that if you're the chief. So that's my comment.
Thank you. And I'm just going to give a gentle reminder to say your name, your pronouns, and how you're related to Pinole when you're speaking, please. All right. Our next person is Kristen Voorhees. And I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong.
Great job at pronouncing it. I'm Kristen Voorhees, she, her, hers. And I am the one who mentioned that I stumbled across this accidentally. And I'm a Richmond resident, so I can't speak specifically to any interactions in Pinole that I've had. But I do have, I think, something that I could say that in general, the interactions that I have with police, the worries that I have are related to an increasing trend of I think, aggressive tactics that I worry about when I engage with police on any matter. And while I have had numerous positive experiences as well, and have a deep respect for the challenges that officers encounter. I think the worries of training or lack of training and de-escalation techniques makes me pause when I do have to have some sort of interaction, or I see an interaction on the street. So that is, I guess, my worry.
Raise your hand. Wait,
Thank you so much, Kristen. Sarah, do we have another question on the queue? Sarah, you're muted.
Oh, I am muted. Christian's raising their hand. I wasn't sure. Kristen Hubbard, you wanted to speak.
Sure. Yeah, short comment. You know, I travel to Pinole pretty often, although I'm not a resident there. But I think the one thing that I'd like to offer is just a little perspective on us having a limited microcosm of people involved in this conversation and how many voices might not be represented just because of, you know, where we are in the pandemic, and to maybe offer our hearts to the experience of other people that may not have the political or social capital to be involved in this dialogue. And thank you so much for uplifting it on behalf of us all.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So we will move on to the next question. What are your expectations of public safety officials in Pinole? And this can include a very broad idea of what public safety officials are. I heard someone mention community engagement earlier. So what are your expectations in Pinole? And I think especially for our visitors, what would you expect when you're visiting Pinole? What would you expect, and how would you expect to be able to be maintained safely? Maintain safety, I should say. All right, Christian, Go ahead.
Thank you. I love the comments here. I think a measure of safety, and I'll just contextualize, I'm a Black woman. And I think that lends perspective to the experience with policing. And when I'm shopping in Pinole and dining in Pinole and visiting, I think what makes me feel safe is actually not seeing so many police, but seeing a flourishing community surrounding me. Because I think my experience has been sound communities where people are well taken care of, lend more to public safety than overzealous policing.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jamila Smith.
Hi, everyone. Again, it's Jamila Smith Folds. She, her, hers, Hercules resident, frequent visitor to Pinole. I think I want what makes me feel safe in Hercules is that I'm known in Hercules. It's one of those things that it's like, oh, that's Miss Jamila. I know the 20 cops that we have, police officers that we have in Hercules. That same feeling I would like to expand to our sister city, meaning that I know the police officers recognize faces. We're not that big of cities. Like, we're small enough cities that Andy Griffith feeling should be all the time. Like, I want to be able to know the police officers by names because we don't have that many of them. And I want them to recognize those faces that are always in Pinole. That's the sense of community, small town community and safety that I would like to carry from Hercules to Pinole. And I want to start that as soon as possible because I want the kids growing up in Hercules and Pinole to have that sense of safety also. I know Officer Johnson, I know Officer Pete, he knows me. So it takes away, or at least limits that aspect of, I don't know you, so I have a heightened threat level when I see you. That threat level is already down because there's some interaction. We've had some kind of relationship with each other. So I want to take that model and expand it.
Great, thank you. And is there anyone else who wants to speak on this question? Rafael Menace, go ahead.
Hello again. So I guess I agree that it would be good if we all knew our police departments well and were on, a name-knowing basis with each other. But I think it's also important for our expectations of public safety to be that, I guess the ideal would be to treat us as if they know us, as if we're known, sort of giving the benefit of the doubt, I guess, which might be a little bit difficult sometimes for the police, but sort of taking that approach of this person exists within the community, even if I don't know them personally, I can still treat them like they're known. I can still have the sort of interactions based on that sort of prior understanding that would be more likely to lead to a positive outcome. And who knows, maybe I'll get to know that person through that process. But I don't think that should require, or can, given the fact that we've got near 20,000 people living in Pinole, actually knowing everybody. I think it's more of a mindset.
Great, thank you. David Ruport, go ahead and unmute yourself. Oh, you're still muted. There we go. Still having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry. I'm a dummy with computers. I need a training period.
We are all learning. Go for it.
Thank you very much. I'll make it quick. My name is Irma Ruport. I've lived here over 40 years, and my experience with the police had been up and down a little bit. We had the highest crime in our neighborhood. 4 break-ins, 2 burglaries in the house. I mean, I can tell you, go on and on. I got involved. My most experience with the police was there were 2 murders in the park, Fernandez Park, and I was appointed for the Public Safety Committee for 8 months, and we did a report, and I want you to know how rewarding that was for me, because I learned a lot about the police and their functions. I think the most important thing here, and I'm not sure if I'm skipping away from the question, it just doesn't take the police, it takes all of us, the community, the neighborhood. We also started Neighborhood Watch, which I'm a captain in my neighborhood. We kind of slow down a little bit with those meetings and communication. I think we need to fast forward, bring it up to speed to today's state, and modernize this Neighborhood Watch with the police, and partner as always, and I'll get better. So I'll leave it at that, and I just want to hear from everybody. But I think we all need to share in this. However, let's all try to do better with each other, and see what we can do to better this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Last call for that question. Right. Our next question is, how has the Black Lives Matter movement impacted your world and your views on policing? Devin, go ahead.
I'll take this one, Sarah, because I think this one was for me really exciting. I think someone said earlier about thriving communities, and it made me think about how, as I'm a 27-year-old young Black person who happens to also identify as gay, and I remember thinking about Black Lives Matter and thinking how brave some of the activists were to be standing up for, different communities. But I also realized for me, it was a learning lesson on like what thriving communities look like access to grocery stores, and access to parks, and, clean air and clean water. Like those are the things that I was reminded about seeing kind of like these young activists fight for a brighter future. So in terms of policing, I think it just kind of linked up how, in terms of safety and again, thriving as both a human, but also as a community, that there were so many aspects of safety that we hadn't, I felt like as a society, dug into. And I think seeing the Black Lives Matter movement kind of push that idea of more was really exciting.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else want to speak on this question? Christine Stokes, go ahead. I'm also going to encourage people who haven't spoken. Oh, I see some new names. I'm excited. Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. Short but sweet. Christine Stokes, she, her. I think as far as like the Black Lives Matter movement, for somebody that is Caucasian, somebody that is white, I think that it's opened my eyes to a lot of other worldviews that are out there about things that have gone on in the community that have been washed to the side or not spoken of as often, that are now being brought to light. And at that, I believe it is a good voice that is coming forward saying that things still aren't okay. I think that we need to continue to have that discussion to make it better. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Kristen Voorhees.
In terms of Black Lives Matter, on the impact it's had on me, I would say that it's not impacted my views around community safety, but what it has impacted is, I think, my ownership of my role in white supremacy and upholding it, and learning the things that I need to learn to hear voices. And so I've been deeply impacted in terms of trying to listen, and now I am trying to I guess, become more active in or proactive in dismantling systemic racism.
Great, thank you. We're going to be doing our second poll. That should be popping up. All right. Michael Ashburn.
Yes, my name is Michael Ashburn. I've been a resident of Pinole for 20 years, and I moved here I lived in Oakland for 20 years. So, and I'm from Philadelphia, so I've had big city, little city experiences. I certainly have had a lot of positive feelings about the Pinole community. I think that one of my first indicators of sort of a comfort level was when I went in the post office, and I noticed that just about every other person was from a different ethnic background. And I thought that was a positive sign for a community as small as this one. And the police have been very courteous, even let me off of a ticket that they could have given me, but didn't because I was a new resident. So for me, it's been positive. But then again, you know, I'm a professional. You know, I look like a pretty normal white guy when actually I'm Black. But, you know, so when I talk about Black Lives Matter, I have a connection with the Black community that goes back since birth. And I know that you're treated differently based upon how people perceive you. And so if you're young and dark skinned and out at night and wearing certain kind of clothing, there's a lot of communities around the country where you don't get respected and you get treated unjustly. And we've seen what can happen in many communities, many cities around, you know, not just large cities either, you know. So, you know, I think that it's incumbent upon all of us that to be vigilant and try to support ways of making our communities more just. And I think that this is part of that effort. Sarah and I have been doing what we can. We've met with Chief Gang, and I personally found him very open. And I guess, you know, he can explain why he wasn't here, but he certainly expressed a desire to be here. So we'll just have to wait and hear what he has to say at some point in the future. But
thank you, Michael. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
Okay, that's okay. I got a few words in. That's fine.
Good. Keep talking in the chat.
Okay.
I did hear Maura Sullivan, or I saw Maura Sullivan's hand up. Did you want to speak on this?
Sure. So my name is Maura Sullivan. I go by she, her, hers. I've lived in Pinole almost 20 years. And, you know, as a 50-something white woman, you know, I can't speak. I mean, I was hoping there would be more people of color on this program and recognize that there's a limited, like I just happened to see it on Facebook. I feel there's kind of a disconnect between the community and the and city government in general. Like, I don't feel like most of the 20,000 people in Pinole have any connection to what's going on in the city, even though it impacts their daily lives. And so I'm trying to do my little part. The couple of things I wanted to say is I've been very moved by the Black Lives Matter movement and have been doing a lot of reading and reflecting and trying to learn as much as I can. And I went to the march, and I found it very moving to have the young people in particular who organized it speak. And so I felt like the police were very hands off, and I appreciated that. I wasn't there the whole time, so I can't really speak to all of that, but I feel like it was a really positive experience for me as a 20 plus, almost 20 year person here, to have not seen that happen before. So I guess that's what I have to say for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, I think it was Tanya Little. May have had a hard time raising her hand, so I want to give you the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm Tanya Little, she, her. I'm a resident of Hercules, and I've only had positive experiences with Pinole because I do frequently shop there. I'm a member of the Pinole Senior Center. And what I could say is that I echo the fact that there are not enough brown people, especially men, on this particular call. And if there was some way to include them at some point, that would be good because we'd hear another voice. I'd like to commend everybody here and even our supervisors for having a listening ear. They've always been listening. I've had interactions with both of them. And what I would like to say is continue. I heard on the news that this could be dropping because of the summer, because of COVID, but it's important that we keep this on the forefront of our minds for the Black and Brown community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna go to David Ruport, and then we're gonna go to Margaret Short. So David, go ahead.
Thank you. Just quickly, I want to make the statement that color has always been equated to entitlement. Lighter you are, the better off you are historically. And then second comment is that the color is a perception also, because many minorities aren't as dark as other minorities are. They're the same minority, maybe speak the same language. So color has been drained into, beaten into people actually to perpetuate the issue of some colors are better than other colors. For example, when I'm in English, I'm doing great. If I go and speak Spanish in a particular neighborhood, I get treated completely different. So just wanted you to understand that Black lives do matter, and it's a point pointing out the disparity in color differentiation.
Thank you, David. Great, Margaret Short.
Hi, I'm Margaret Short, and I am also a resident of Hercules for 15 years. But before that, I was 20 years in Pinole. And before that, I lived in El Sobrante, Albany, and I was born and raised in Berkeley. So I have a lot of history in this area. Generally speaking, my experience with the police has been positive. When I was in Pinole, there were several occasions when I interacted with the police at my home. And I have to say that they didn't come in like gangbusters and raising hell, and they tried to be helpful in the process. What motivated me to get involved after seeing the George Floyd murder in our, in front of our very eyes, is that you can't really deny what you see. Not that I was in denial per se, but that my life experience was so different. But we have to be involved. And so I have gotten involved with a committee that there are a number of us on this call, and the committee is freed. It's Pinole, Hercules, Rodeo, El Sobrante for diversity and equity. And as a result of some of the questions that we asked of the Hercules Police Department, we've had a couple town halls. And out of that, one of those town halls, we learned that there is a new law that the local police departments will start having to, okay, I'm done.
Please continue what you're saying though in the chat. It sounds really interesting. I really hope to hear about it. We are going to move on to our next question. We're going to show you the poll results. And so 100% says racism exists in Pinole. I think that speaks volumes. So our next question is, have you seen racism play out in Pinole and specifically in public safety? And if so, how? And this is kind of a touchy subject, so if people feel more comfortable, you can put it into the chat, and we can move on. But it's something that I feel like is important that we mention, and important that our elected officials know about experiences. Maureen, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I have seen it a lot, especially around the time that we were having the Black Lives Matter gathering. And there was a lot of racism that I saw on social media. I think people think that they can, you know, hide behind their keyboards with fake names and just try to stir the pot. So that's one place that I've seen it pretty vagrantly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maureen. And I think you kind of bring this other piece in that there are places, our social media and outside of Pinole permeates into Pinole. Tanya, I see you saying racism is experienced in the USA, and therefore it is in Pinole. That's not an exception. I think that that's a really good comment. Does anyone else want to speak on that? We're going to go on to our final question. What do you see as the next steps for public safety in Pinole? And also in the chat, tell us what further conversations you want to see about public safety, equity, and social justice. Where should we go from here? I know this is kind of a big question, but remember, there's no bad ideas. So anywhere you guys think that public safety should go. I heard some talk of engagement. What do you think should be the next steps? Should we keep having these conversations? David, go ahead. Go ahead and unmute yourself, though. We still can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go for it.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, where we go from here, I think it's important that we need to address this on more broadly nature in terms of the whole community. We do, and I keep repeating myself, we have 2 cable TVs, 28 and 26. We're not utilizing them at the utmost. The chief, all of us could have town hall meetings, conversation, bring it all to, especially on the TV so people can watch it. And I think it's gonna take bringing back, we used to have a vibrant neighborhood watch group. We had 20, 30, 40 captains around the community, as small as it is, and it was really citywide. Community engagement, it's gonna take all of us. So Sarah, thank you for bringing this forward, and all of you who are involved in this, and also our officials, thank you for coming on board. Let's start a beginning. Talk about all the issues that are affecting us, because they will be sent, how should I say, passed on to the next generation, and we don't want to do that. Let's fix the problems now. And that's all I want to say. So communicate, and let's start spreading this to the whole community, including Hercules and all the neighboring communities. Thank you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you. That's one vote for continuing to talk. I see lots of people talking in the chat. Does anyone else want to bring forward what we think of our next steps? All right. I've seen lots of good ideas in the chat. And I just want to, we're going to wrap up that section. You can keep talking in the chat definitely. We're going to launch our last poll for you to give us some more information. And thank you so much for participating in our conversation tonight. And special thanks to our panelists. We're going to give each of you 3 minutes to wrap up. Tell us 1 or 2 takeaways from tonight and 1 action item that you have around the topics that we've talked about. And we'll try and go in reverse order. So see if I can remember the order we went in. Councilmember Anthony Tave, we're gonna go with you first.
Right. So I have a little bit of background noise, but can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I've been taking notes and just listening, but the things that resonated with me were definitely the feeling of being safe, and what I'm sorry, hold on one second, guys. Let me see if I can hold on. I have a lot going on in the background. Just what resonated with me was the feeling safe. I mean, I think that as an elected official, you know, the water, hearing comments about water, hearing comments about coming to the community and seeing it thriving and getting a sense of inclusion. I think that a lot of times with policing, you see the uniform, and if somebody were to pull you over, logically you're thinking, what did I do wrong, right? So I think that it's important for us to have our police out and visible in other ways other than pulling people over or traffic stops and whatnot. So I think that just the Coffee with the Cop program comes to mind as items that we need to do more of and find different ways of doing, which I think Pinole Police Department is doing very well at. But I think there's a lot to be said. There was a couple comments about city staff being included in these meetings. It's something that I want to bring back to council so that we have the professionals, because I think there was a couple technical questions that were there as to use of force methods and how is Pinole keeping up with current standards. So those are things that, you know, I'd love to have the chief and staff weigh in on so that everybody gets the information they need. I think these meetings are great. I think just hearing from everybody, and that informs me to help me make decisions, to start asking questions of staff and of other entities that exist. So I'm excited. I think this was a great meeting, and I think that we need to have more of them. Sarah, I think you're still muted.
Oh, thank you. Supervisor Federal Glover. We have you.
Thank you. I really appreciate this conversation, and as many people stated early on, this is just the beginning of a number of conversations that has to take place around this issue, because one of the things we have discovered within our history is that this has been a start and stop conversation that have taken place down through the decades. And so it's time to really start the conversation and not stop it until we find those results that we're all looking for. We cannot find ourselves becoming complacent once again, where once the steam has died off a little bit, that it goes away. We have to continue the conversations. John talked earlier about a number of the things that we started within the county, and it's about engagement in those areas. Our DA has started to work towards reimagining, our justice system, both juvenile and adult, and we need to be paying close attention to it and making sure that we hit some marks. We cannot sit back and say that these things don't exist. Social media has not allowed us to get back up into those comfort zones. It is showing us what is taking place, not just within the city of Pinole or Contra Costa County, This is happening on a national level, and we must address it. We cannot go back to business as usual. So I have a number of things that myself and my colleague here, John Gioia, are working on, and things that we have done that we want to make sure that we continue to push out there in the front. One of the major things will be when we go to the board with the Office of Racial Justice, Racial Equality and Social Justice, because we want you to get behind that. We want you to speak to it, and let's continue to speak truth to what we're seeing, what we feel, and what has been really unknown, because those impacts we're seeing each and every day. And so whether you like social media or not, it has opened a lot of eyes into what reality is within this country. And it's not to say, and I'm not hitting on any note, but our national leadership has just not been there. Matter of fact, it has influenced the type of behaviors that we're seeing. And so when we talk about change, we really got to look at how we are going to progressively move the needle. So with that being said, there's going to be a lot of discussion, and everyone needs to be a part of the discussion, because change is going to come with the involvement or without the involvement. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. It's good to hear what people are thinking, so that that's all a part of what a plan is and how we start to deal with our realities and find resolution to many.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Supervisor Glover. All right, we're gonna go to District Attorney Diana Becton.
Once again, thank you all so much for hosting this forum and for giving all of us an opportunity to hear your thoughts about public safety in our community. Okay. And so I think one of the things that I heard loud and clear, well, first of all, I think we've all heard agreement that these conversations should continue, that this really is just the beginning, and there's so many other topics for us to cover. So I do hope that you will invite us into the room again so that we have an opportunity to continue these discussions. They're really important and informative for us as well. The other thing that I heard loud and clear is I heard someone say, it takes all of us. And that was one of the things that I noted. I find that a very, very powerful statement, because really we have some major, major change that is happening in this country right now, not only in our country, but in our communities. And you've made reference to, what happened with George Floyd. I know that all of us watched in horror those, 8 minutes and 47 seconds all around the country. And we've all resolved to do things differently and to do things better as we talk, and also to reshape our thinking and our conversations about public safety. And so we have to do that together. It is not something for just the police to do, or just the district attorney to do, or just your supervisors to do. It's something for all of us to do, and all of us to have these conversations about. So I want to encourage this to continue. As I said at the very beginning, I did pledge to listen to you. One of the things that I've also seen, it wasn't necessarily directed towards my office, but I do want you to know that one of the things that I think I heard you say is that data and transparency are going to be very important going forward. And so it's one of the reasons that I've placed a great emphasis on that in my office. We've brought in a nonprofit that is assisting us with that. So for the first time in our county, we will be able to take a deep dive into our data to see how we're affecting our communities, how our policies and our charging decisions might be affecting our communities, so that we can then see if we have disparate impact on any part of our community, and then take strategic steps to change that. I've heard calls for better outcomes for our youth. And again, so thank you, Supervisor Glover, for mentioning I've called for a work group to reimagine youth justice, but we've also been able to bring $1 million to the county solely for our youth restorative justice program. So there are many, many other things that we're doing. We'll get a chance to share those as time goes on, but I too join in the call to keep this up and keep inviting us. Very informative. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna go over to Supervisor John Gioia.
Thanks, Sarah. And I want to first acknowledge you've done a great job moderating this. So I think this has been great. And I want to thank all of you for participating. I know it's not easy publicly talking about issues of race, something that is important that we all do if we're going to really create an equitable society, and one in which there's both equality and equity, right? Two different concepts, both important. And my takeaway in listening to all of you, I especially really recognize the comments, Jamila, when you said that, safety is conditional. Devin talked about the fact that you feel unsafe when people don't understand you or don't understand who you are. And Yvette talked about the perception of safety based on where you are in life. And I think, to me, that goes to the core that we shouldn't be having different perceptions of safety. We do, because there's racism and inequality and inequity in the justice system, in policing, and in our society. And that's what we want to solve. That's what we want to get rid of, is the idea that people feel differently about safety, are treated differently based on the color of their skin, their station in life, all of those things. So the action item that for me, and I know I mentioned this at the outset, is that Supervisor Glover and I have been working with a number of community organizations around the county to take a proposal to our board next month to create an office of racial equity and social justice, not just within county government, but how our systems in county government externally affect equity and equality in our county. If you think about it, there are disparities in our health system, and we run a health department that works to close disparity. We have a social service system. Our district attorney runs one of our criminal justice departments. There's also sheriff and probation and public defender. And we've seen the evidence that people are treated differently in the criminal justice system based on the color of their skin. But most importantly, what we felt was important, and this is where we would want your involvement, is we have raised actually a fair amount of money from foundations to create probably a 6-month community process that will hopefully kick off soon, to really hear how the community wants to prioritize this work in county government, whether it's work in criminal justice, health, social services, land use planning, that essentially this Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice be grounded on the principles that our own residents in our county feel is important. So we look forward, when this process kicks off, for all of you to participate so that the work can be grounded in community, not just what we feel is the right way to do this work. So thank you, and I look forward to these conversations continuing.
Thank you so much, John. And Mayor Pro Tem Norma Martinez-Rubin, you started us off, and we'll have you wrap us up.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Well, that's quite a challenge to wrap us up because there's so much that has barely touched the surface. We haven't yet gotten to a number of core issues and situations and circumstances that lead us to feel as we do today in response or not responding to the questions that you've posed, Sarah. So 2 takeaways for me are that one, generally speaking, the experience with the Pinole Police Department has been positive, with some exceptions based certainly on personal experience and the perception, and perhaps even more directly, the direct experience because of our personal backgrounds, that sense of safety is not there. The second takeaway is that you would like to hear directly from our police chief about all the things that the police department has done. And many of those things have been proactive with regard to having a sense of safety in the community. Minimally, and words are words, but they do represent something. The motto of the Pinole Police Department is to engage our community. And their philosophy is to build relationships and partnerships. And I think one means of building those are exchanges like today, but they're not exclusively the only way to do so. And a couple of you alluded to that, in that the very people who may need most to be heard aren't here. So a principle of community organizing that I learned over the years is that you go to where the people are. I don't think that is a foreign concept to any of us on this panel or even in the audience. So I expect that there will be different approaches that our police, that our Pinole Police will take and will continue to take to reach people who are not their fans. And I heard that from our police chief, and that's very encouraging, because we know that it can be easier to come together when we feel okay about something. But the challenge to all of us in public service is to get with and get involved with the very people who are not likely to reach out just yet. And the question becomes, why isn't that happening, right? So we go out to them however we can. Now, some of you are more involved than others on this panel. I am, to a certain degree, minimally on my role as council member, but as a career, these issues have been at the forefront. I've got to say that I am proud of having a public health background that to a great degree encompasses all kinds of things related to health, not only infectious diseases, but quality of life matters, land use matters, and certainly racism as a public health issue has come to the forefront. So thank you for tonight or this afternoon, and we'll continue talking.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for all of your words and your ideas. I just want to wrap up our forum by thanking the members of the Pinole Progressive Alliance. Anthony Tave and Robert Rogers have really had just so many conversations about this and organizing tonight's event. And also a special thanks to Maureen Toms for setting up tonight's meeting and keeping us all in check. We're going to share the poll, our last poll results. And finally, so everyone agrees that we need to continue this conversation. So that's great to see. Finally, I want to encourage those who are interested in progressive issues to join the Pinole Progressive Alliance for our October meeting this Friday at 6 p.m. by Zoom. Kristen Persley normally moderates our mailing list, but you can also email me, which my email is going to be in the chat tonight, right now, hopefully. And you can also give me feedback regarding the forum. And if you want to be involved in planning more events like this one. I also want to make sure that you have our panelists' contact information, and that'll also be included in the chat. If others would like to include upcoming events, please feel free to add that to the chat as well. And before we say goodbye for the night, I want to remind everyone to vote on November 3rd. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone has a fantastic night.
Thank you, everyone. Really great work. Really great stuff. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.